Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I am back. Appreciate my boy Juice here, who I'm joined by this evening, and Nick holding down the fort on Tuesday. Lucky for you guys, though, you get to talk about a victory. And unfortunately, we're here talking about a loss tonight, Juice. 5-3 at the hands of the Padres. But before we get into anything baseball related, my friend, how are you?
Good, man. Sucks they lost. I feel like a lot of times when me and you get on these shows, we're talking about a loss this year. I don't know if if it's just we're unlucky or because they're winning more than they're losing. But
right.
I don't know. I just feel like the last couple times we've been on, me and you always get the losses.
Yeah, it does feel that way. It's weird how that happens, but yeah, you know what, man? I don't know. At least my in attendance record is so far better this year than my my podcast record. At least is 2-1 seeing them in person so far this year. But yeah, man, you know what? I mean, tough loss tonight. I kind of agree with Scott. Need the warmer weather. That'll certainly help. I'm sick of this cold shit in April, and I'm over it personally, and I'm sure the Cubs are in a lot of facets as well. But I mean, overall, tonight was just a game where, you know, it really came down to just a handful of at-bats. If you really look into it and kind of dive into it, you know, the Tatis at-bat, obviously, that gave them the lead for good. Late in the game was a big one. Obviously, at the end of the game with Nico up and 2 men on, it sucks that it was with 2 outs because you have to hit Madrigal off the bench. We'll get into that in a little bit here. But, you know, it's just – and then, you know, Hughes had a bad night. I don't agree with Alzolay going out there for a second inning after pitching last night. Like, there's just a lot of things tonight where you kind of said it when we jumped on initially before we started the show, Juice. They just kind of got beat tonight.
Yeah, they didn't really. I don't know. It's kind of started like we got done with the Bears show doing all that recap, and we'll be doing a lot of stuff tomorrow. But I was ready. I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and watch the Cubs. I was excited because – you know, the Cubs in the recent run have beaten up on Michael Wacha as of late, too. They've had some success against him. And Drew Smyly was coming off of a great start. I had full faith that he was going to throw a gem today, and he did. He was pretty good. And it wasn't great, but he was good enough. I mean, if the Cubs were to hand this over to the bullpen with, you know, more run support, he probably walks away with a win after this one. But it just sucks because, and I talked about this at length in the group chat. I was sitting with my buddies in a group chat talking about how, like, the Cubs are overcoming so much in baseball, like the lack of having run producers, but they're doing it at the expense of themselves and sometimes too, right? Like, some guys in this lineup are just, you're lucky to get what you get out of it. And I wonder, like, how much longer do you roll with Eric Hosmer? Like, I every at bat, and he wasn't even playing the field today. I tweeted that earlier today. I said, what's the point of having Mancini? Mancini had a great night, but he could have did everything that he did via the DH.
Right.
And having that, you know, plus defense in Hosmer at first, I just didn't understand why. If you wanted both in the lineup, I get it. It's fine. But in those cases, if you're going to put Hosmer in the lineup, he should be playing first.
Yeah.
He's a good first baseman in terms of defense. And I felt like there was one moment throughout the game, the step on first, throw the second. It didn't – I don't think it amounted into a run or anything like that, but it's still extra work that these pitchers had to do to get out of that inning. And it's those little moves that start to make you wonder, like, when do we get the best group here? You know, when do you start making moves where guys at the AAA level are just poking at the door or knocking at the door like, hey, you got to bring me up? I mean, Christopher Morel hit another home run today. Like, it's getting to the point where, yeah, you better be playing him every day. You know, no matter what group he's on, no matter if he's playing at AAA, if he's playing at the big league level, the bats he's putting there, you're just wasting, really, when you look at it, because he could be doing it here. What really is the difference? Is there really that much of a difference in terms of – obviously, big league pitching is better, where he's not going to hit a home run every day like he is in Iowa. But does he provide more than what you got on the roster? I think he does. And you just start to wonder, You have to put that lineup out there like that. And are you just better served, like, just cutting the cord on some of these guys? Bullpen's the same way, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into the bats because I'm glad you brought that up. And immediately, my brain went to exactly what you just said. I was sitting watching the game with my lady tonight, and I looked at her and I said, I was like, I'm over Madrigal and I'm over Rios and I'm over Torrens and I'm over all these clowns on the roster that are coming in meaningful situations when you need to win baseball games. Why? Why are they like? Why is Madrigal pinch hitting and swinging at fastballs that are at his face? You're 5'4" on a good day, dude. What are you swinging at? And I get it. Swinging a baseball bat's hard. I'm not going to question that. But like you said, Juice, when do we get to see the best version of this team? Because right now, 3/26 of that at minimum are in Iowa.
Yeah.
And one's up with you now, but as soon as Bellinger comes back, he's going back to Iowa. And like Scott said here in the comments, Nelly V's ninth inning at bat, which was incredible, by the way, to take that walk the way he did against Hader and foul off as many pitches as he did, should have solidified he is ready to stay in Chicago. And I think he is. I think he's legitimately ready to stay in Chicago. Will he play every day here? No. And I think as long as he's okay with that, the Cubs are okay with that, he's a better bat off the bench in situations like tonight than Madrigal or Rios or Torrens are. And the same goes, like you said, for Christopher Morel, for Matt Mervis. Like, there's a world where even if you wanted to keep Eric Hosmer on the roster, there is a world where if he's in the lineup that day, he's playing first. Like you said, he's there for his defense. And then you can sift through rotating guys like Wisdom and Mervis and Mancini in that DH role, or you can play Mervis at first and give Hosmer the day, and then Morel can play a lot of third. Or if Morel needs to spell somebody in the outfield, or Nelly V spells somebody in the outfield, like, that's just such a deeper team. I feel so much better going into a late game situation where if you want to play matchups, you can, because you have meaningful bats coming off the bench, not these guys that admittedly probably don't make it on most rosters. It's just, to your point, Juice, when does this front office finally say, okay, we are serious about winning? Luis Torrens, Edwin Rios, Nick Madrigal, whomever are not getting the job done. Let's bring up Christopher Morel. Let's bring up Matt Mervis. Let's keep Nelly V in Chicago and let these boys roll and see what happens. Because you still have, even with those guys here, it's not like you're losing veteran leadership.
No.
With Torrens and Rios and Madrigal leaving, right? Your veterans are your Mancinis, your Bellies, your Swansons, your Hosmers. They're still here. Your Jan Gomes, they're still here. Let the young kids come and learn in that environment. Like, wouldn't that still be good for them? I get getting the everyday at-bats in Iowa. I fully understand that in its entirety. But, like, eventually you just need to give us the best product available.
And just to build on that, you look at the least amount of moves that David Ross can do, too. Like, if you take out a Swanson, a Horner, a Suzuki, a Happ out of this lineup, and you already have, Cody Bellinger out, obviously on paternity leave.
Yep.
The lineup looks gross, and not in a good way. Like, very much underwhelming 4A talent if you were to give, during this stretch, a Dansby or a Nico the day off. And that goes too for the bullpen. Like, you saw it in today's game. It got to the end of the game, and it's like, you can almost see it in Ross's eyes that he doesn't want to burn Fulmer like ever anymore. And he was just forced to put in Merriweather.
Can you blame him?
No, but like, when I say this all the time about some of these guys that we brought in.
Yeah.
Hosmer, Mancini, like these 1-year guys. And you know me, Ron, I love a 1-year deal.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what's great about a 1-year deal? It's not long. And you also, on the back end, you don't owe them anything. Like, you are a 1-year deal signifies to the MLB that there was no market for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Players don't take 1-year deals unless they just didn't like what was out there for them. And it could have been a multi-year deal out for Trey Mancini. Could have been. Absolutely could have been.
And it technically was because of the option, but nonetheless.
Right. Nonetheless, it's at the end of the year, the Cubs could walk away from this, and it doesn't really matter. I don't understand because you're holding on to guys like Rios and Torrens that I think if you were to pass them through, and I think Torrens is the one that does not have any options left, if I'm not mistaken. I think he clears it anyway, and he probably ends up in your AAA farm. And if he doesn't, what's the big problem here? Right. You're seeing Pablo Aliendo in your system, who's years away, but the depth is there. You're seeing Miguel Amaya's resurgence from his injuries, having a great start to his season down in the farm system. It's just I don't get why you're holding on to like 4A players right now. Like it's right there for the taking, and they're winning ball games regardless, and in spite of just the terrible roster construction. Madrigal, I know it was bad tonight, but I've been less upset with him. He's been fairly consistent-ish. It's obvious that there's certain matchups that David Ross has to play him.
Yeah. 100%. As we unfortunately lose our guy Juice there for the moment. But just to reiterate on what he had to say, using Madrigal in certain in certain matchups, it is what it is. I agree there. I really do. And he's back. There he is. Hey, buddy.
Sorry about that, man.
No, you're fine.
My internet's working overtime today. Where did I cut off? Because
you said with Madrigal.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been enough matchups to get him in enough to have a difference on this ball club, but at the end of the day, like, is this a fad, or is this just something that we're going to see for a while? And like, what's the long-term plan for this roster? You just start to wonder it. And I sit and I try my best to bite my tongue because they are winning baseball games, but it's just frustrating when you do sit and you watch every single day two guys consistently down in AAA who are outperforming. And realistically, what are they learning? They're learning how to trot around the bases. I mean, they already know how to do that, but it seems like they're not learning much more from their AAA experience other than the fact that they've outgrown the level. And it kind of sucks to sit and be like, well, Eric Hosmer's at this position. Well, he makes the league minimum, and you shouldn't owe him anything anyway.
Yeah. He's not a guy that's been here for forever and helped you win championships. And you don't owe him anything. And Tony the Blind one here said earlier, only thing once with Velasquez being sent down, right, they have to play this game now, is that'll be, 2 of his 3 options for the season. And that's definitely, I'm sure something that they're keeping in mind, but to your point, as we continue kind of thinking about this here is, it's really, it is frustrating, especially with guys like, I think with Torrens and Rios right now are the 2 big ones where like Torrens plays once every 4 days, maybe. And Rios, we've only seen Rios a handful of times this season. Like, if you're just going to waste roster spots with them, let a Mervis and a Morel come up and play. And if Nelly V needs to stay down, as long as he needs to until something, severe happens because of the option game, so be it, right? But you have 2 guys clearly outperforming, like you said, their level right now in AAA, and Mervis and Morel. And I think they would both add a welcome spark to this team with not only their youth, but their talent, right? And Morel obviously being a clubhouse guy, which all of us fell in love with him last year because of that. It'd be good to see. And then to your point, Juice, right? You mentioned the bullpen too. It really feels that way with the bullpen. You got Fulmer, which we don't even know what he is anymore. And he's the highest paid bullpen arm in this pen currently. And then you got Merriweather, who isn't anything special at this point. He hasn't shown us anything. He's no Keegan Thompson. He's no Adbert Alzolay. He's no Brandon Hughes. Like even Brad Boxberger is at least performing to what we thought Boxberger would be. You know, you got guys in AAA that are worthy of a look. You know, the Brendan Littles of the world. You obviously have Jeremiah Estrada that you can still use coming out of the pen here. I would have rather seen him tonight than, you know, maybe you let him start out the 7th instead of Alzolay coming back out for second inning after throwing the day before. Like there's so many things that you could say. And if you're like, well, we need a lefty, Ryan Barucki's chilling down in AAA. Give him a shot, right? I mean, he's a guy with major league experience. There's so many names that they have in that AAA pen that they could absolutely use that they're just choosing not to because they're trying to maximize the value of the guys that they decided on the opening day roster. And unfortunately, right now, 2 of your, 8 bullpen arms are garbage time guys at this point. Like, when does, you know, when does it get to that point? And I know Tony says here, he says, you know, Fulmer has some ability to pitch a high leverage hitter. 24 holds last year, setup men. Absolutely agree. He hasn't had it this year, and he's even admitted he hasn't had it this year. And you know, you can't win divisions in April, but you sure as hell can lose them. And you can make the argument that Fulmer has already kind of cost this team 3 games this year with just really bad performances, 2 blown saves, a loss to his name. Like, he's probably been the most inconsistent bullpen arm outside of maybe so far Brandon Hughes, but he's also coming back and didn't have a spring training. Like, Fulmer had a spring training. This guy was expected to come in and be kind of the closer de facto to start the year because of being the highest paid guy in that pen. And unfortunately, he just hasn't got it done, and that's limited David Ross's options once again. So it's like, when does the front office give him help and bring guys that you can at least throw out there and give them an honest shot to who you maybe don't know what they are?
And David Ross has to be open to throwing guys into the fire quicker in situations that'll make them feel uncomfortable. Some ways, like you mentioned Estrada, like sometimes I just feel like when he gets a new arm up here, it's like, where's the most cushion landing I can give him? Yeah, that's great, but eventually that guy has to pitch in a high leverage situation, no matter who they are. If you're the last guy on the bullpen line or you're the first guy out every night, you are going to come in over a course of 20 games in a high leverage situation. You are. So let's figure out if he can do it. Tonight, I'm not frustrated about tonight. They're playing good baseball. Agreed. This is a good team in San Diego.
Also agreed.
I am just seeing trends that are keeping this team maybe below their potential. And I don't want to see that continue. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that I think there is a timeline maybe in May that makes a little bit more sense for these guys like Morel, or maybe they rotate out, some bullpen arms, because that's another thing. The starters aren't going as deep anymore. The bullpen has been used, a lot over the course of April. And that's all fine, but that's fine until it's July or August. And you're looking at your bullpen like, man, these guys are just out of gas. We saw it. Remember
2021?
It was that the starters couldn't go far, but by the time it hit August, the Cubs were just done. They just didn't have a bullpen anymore because guys were just exhausted. But I'm optimistic that maybe we're towards the end of this run of, players that we've rolled our eyes at when we look at the lineup card, or coming running out of the bullpen. But I'll just hope that the case is that they win tomorrow and, go into a series against the Marlins and take care of business. Cause you're looking at capable winnable games for the next, 4, 5. I mean, realistically, if you really want to look at the schedule, the Nationals after that, I mean, you can go on a little run here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you've got 2 series with the Marlins coming up, one in their place, one back at Wrigley in early May. You've got 4, like you said, with the lowly Nats, a team that you love to see on the schedule because they're a team you can take advantage of. And even arguably, the Cardinals aren't playing great baseball right now, and you get the Cardinals after the Marlins come to town. So maybe there's an opportunity for this team to string some wins together. Tony bringing up a point here, and he's correct. I mean, San Diego has some of the top players in the league. Losing them is not shameful. Agreed. This is a good baseball team, but it does suck because this game still felt winnable. I think that's the part where it's just like, damn. It's
winnable that you look at these guys and you're like, man, if I just had that guy. You know what I mean? Like, if you just had
Cody Bellinger.
Right. Or if I just had Morel, if I just had, like you look at tonight and you're like, man, like maybe those guys are worth more than, a run apiece there. So maybe you're looking at a tie game in the 9th and an opportunity to win it with a single opposed to needing a long ball for for a chance. So, but yeah, it's just baseball's it's a tough ride, man. Tonight's just one of those tough rides we got.
Sure is. Well put, buddy. Any final thoughts on this one before we move on to tomorrow?
No, as they say in the Sox on Tap, guys, flush it.
Just hashtag just flush it. Yeah, we'll just flush this one for sure. And Tony's comment from earlier, he says, "I'm going to the game tomorrow, hoping I don't regret it. Never go to the April games count of its stupid fucking cold." Agreed. I was there last night. It wasn't as cold as I thought it was going to be, but it was still chilly. So stay warm out there. At least hopefully it'll be sunny tomorrow. And
60 degrees, I thought.
I think tomorrow's supposed to be the nicest day of the week, actually, temperature wise. So, Tony, you might luck out. I hope you do.
65 here on the south side. So
yeah, there you go. That's a beautiful night to go. Beautiful day, pardon me, to go sit in the bleachers. It's surely something I would enjoy. My final thought from this game, Juice, is another pissed away opportunity for Ron's Mancini runs. So
yeah, is this somewhat of a Mancini curse? Are we?
It might be. We've
played uninspiring baseball since.
I think it's the baseball gods clearly saying that nobody needs to see that shit. And that the Cubs are going to pay for it because of the bet. So, I mean, they have an opportunity to win the next 2 to qualify, but maybe it's just meant to be that everybody has to sit and just wonder what could have been for sake of the Chicago Cubs. But nonetheless,
I blame Scott for Iowa for this run here.
It's your fault, Scott. No. But I think it's not meant to be, and I think that's clearly a sign of that. But Juice, we will move forward as always, and on Thursday, April 27th, the Cubs and Padres have the rubber match. It'll be a 1:20 start, as always, at Wrigley on getaway day. The 13-10 Cubs and 513-13 San Diego Padres. 13s are wild in the record column for both of these teams. On the bump for the Padres, it's the right-hander Seth Lugo. He's 2-1 on the season with a 2.78 ERA. And on the bump for the Cubbies is the youngster Hayden Wesneski. Hayden's got a 6.23 ERA with a 1-1 record so far on the campaign. Nobody on this San Diego team has seen Wesneski in their career. A good portion of these Cubs have seen Lugo in some capacity. The player seeing him the most is Dansby Swanson, who only is batting .077 against him. So, Juice, with that kind of tingies in mind here, what do you think the Cubs need to do tomorrow in order to secure a series victory?
They need length out of Hayden Wesneski. We need that Hayden Wesneski start that we got against Oakland. That's the one that we realistically need to see from him. And I think that there's some pressure maybe on his shoulders too. Obviously with Kyle Hendricks, starting to ramp up his, minor league rehab starts, and there's a lot of question.
Rehab start tomorrow in Iowa, so you can do a little dual watching as you watch Kyle. Actually, the Iowa Cubs start a full hour, I think, before the actual Cubs do. So you could probably catch Hendricks until he leaves that game and then flip over to the Cubbies on Marquee.
Yeah, be interesting to see how that goes for him. I'll definitely be catching some highlights of what his pitch mix looked like and how the professor fared in his first rehab. But maybe there's some pressure on Hayden Wesneski to keep his spot in the rotation. Obviously,
Yep.
it hasn't gone the way spring training had went for him, but there's been a lot of question, at least I have, over his starts. I think that the overall temperature for him has been kind of unlucky. Seems like he's gotten a lot of days where it's cold. I think I tweeted this off of the Cubs on Tap account the last time he started when I was manning the Twitter sphere. That I feel like his breaking stuff and his sweeper is so much indicative on, how he can grip the baseball, have the feel for it. And in Oakland, it looked great because obviously the temperature is a little better out there, opposed to the way it's been at Wrigley Field for his couple starts that he's had. So hopefully he's got a feel for that sweeper. He's able to locate that fastball. And obviously for him, it's all about locating that fastball. If he can get that over and accurate and in places that, can induce soft contact, it makes his sweeper play so much better, and he doesn't have to labor as much to get through. But yeah, I just hope that they bring enough bats tomorrow to win a series, get a nice long performance out of Hayden Wesneski, and we'll hit Go Cubs Go and get a series win here and move our way slowly. Last series in April. Isn't that crazy? Like, baseball in general just moves so much quicker when you're doing these shows. I'll tell you that.
1,000%.
But they're playing good. Keep playing good. As we've said, get them on, get them over. Nick and I talked last night. The rules are in your favor. Steal some bases, field the ball, throw it to first. Don't beat yourself. And if you get a good start out of Hayden Wesneski, I like their chances.
I agree completely. Tony in the comments here is saying he was listening to Eno Saris on the Rates and Barrels podcast. Said the sweeper isn't getting swung on for Hayden like it was last season, and agreed. It's not generating the same swing and miss. But agree with you, Juice. He absolutely needs a good start, I think, tomorrow, because I think the guy that, in agreement and once again with Tony, first out of the rotation is probably Wesneski when Hendricks comes back if he keeps this up. The guy coming for his major league job is making his first rehab start tomorrow. So, if that's not added motivation for Hayden to say, hey, I belong here and I don't belong in Des Moines, he's got to show up. He's got to give you at least 6, I think, especially with how taxed this bullpen is. I think that would be perfect case scenario for a guy like him. You got Keegan, who's kind of fresh. Coming, didn't pitch tonight. Obviously, Alzolay probably unavailable tomorrow. You got a decent amount of guys that are unavailable tomorrow. So in a perfect world, you get 6 out of Hayden. Maybe you get a gem out of him and somehow get him, 6 2/3, 7, and then you save the bullpen a little bit would be cool. Especially, it's for the Cubs. It's a quick turnaround because it's getaway day. You get on a flight, you go to Miami, and you got a night game on Friday. So you got a little bit of a breather before heading south, and before our friend Mr. Tyler Edmonds is in attendance for one of these upcoming games this weekend.
Yeah, and Ron, they don't have an off day until May 11th.
Yeah,
and that's a long time. It's a lot of starts in a row.
2 weeks from tomorrow is their next off day. So absolutely agree with you there, man. They need if you could save the bullpen tomorrow and Wesneski can keep his job, I think it's best case scenario for the Cubs to win the series. So right on par with you there, buddy. Brian Lefever's final thought was it's time to lower the bar in regarding to the Mankini bet. I will not lower that bar. It will remain at 3. It will not be dropped to 2. It will remain at 3. So if they lose tomorrow, the bet's over. And then watch them go sweep the Marlins or something crazy like that because that juju is no longer hanging over their heads. But that is neither here nor there. But Juice, before we wrap up today's show, I want to remind everybody Cubs on Tap, one of 2 official podcasts that cover the Cubs of the On Tap Sports Network. Check out our friends over at Dingers. They are live every Monday night at Dinger Cubs on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to follow along with all the boys, Kevin, Jeff, Mitch, and Jake. You can follow us at Cubbies on Tap, also on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Luce on Tap. Juice is at Juice on Tap. Be sure to follow all the other boys as well at Nick_on Tap, at Teddy Freddy 270, at Joey Knows Nothing. You know the drill. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks. Busy weekend coming up for the Bears crew. Juice and I were on the microphones earlier talking Bears with our boy Q. We'll be back tomorrow for a little bit of a live stream during the first round of the draft, leading up and through the Bears' first pick. Then we'll sign off shortly after that. So hopefully you'll tune in with us here. That'll be on the On Tap YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as on the Bears On Tap Twitter. It'll be fun. It's a big old weekend in the NFL with the NFL draft coming up. And you know the drill. Bulls, Blackhawks, we got it all. It comes fans. We're talking about a loss tonight, but we're not talking about our team not scoring a run for 23 straight innings now over the last 3 days.
How do you even do that?
I don't know.
How do you even go that far without?
I think it was like 11 of their last 12 batters in today's game struck out. The other out was a ground out by Elvis Andrews. But send your friends that like the Southsiders to our friends that like the Southsiders, because everybody's just in a big old sadness circle right now regarding the White Sox. They're actually, I learned a lot, Juice. So I watched you and Nick on playback this morning and enjoyed every single part of it. It was a great show. I also went and watched our friends over at Sox on Tap. Just listened in, and our big boss man, Mr. Tony Marchese, as well as NWI Steve on the microphones for that one. First off, NWI Steve does a great Kenny Williams impression. Secondly,
yeah, he does. I heard that too.
They are big old mad online right now about this team. I learned a lot today, Juice. The things that I didn't know, because I root for the Northsiders. I root for the better team in Chicago. They are currently on pace based on their start. This is their worst start since 1986. When LaRussa got fired by Hawk Harrelson's stupid ass mid-season. And then on top of it, they are on pace right now for the worst season in franchise history. It's bad. It's bad, okay? As Brian says, they're miserable on the south side. Hit the like button, the bell icon, so we have some positivity. Absolutely.
I'm with them on that.
Be joining us over on the YouTubes and hit that bell so you know when we go live. And Brian, don't worry, buddy. You can always go back to your true love because Zach Gallen shoved today, buddy.
Oh, so good, right?
The Diamondbacks are good, man. The Diamondbacks are good, but like Tony the Blind says, the entire organization is pathetic, starting from the owner. 100% agree. So send your friends that like that pathetic organization to our friends that like them over at Sox on Tap. And once again, ontapsports.com, at OnTapSports, and on social media, the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Juice, buddy, it's always a pleasure, despite the loss. Juice and Luce show again on this Wednesday evening. We will be back. I don't know what tomorrow's show looks like. It might be a solo venture. I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to have to get it in before the Bears, fiascos kick off. So tomorrow's show, hopefully, is talking about a winner. It might just be me. And if it is just me, join me in the comments. Give me something to talk about besides talking to myself for 25 minutes. That would be greatly appreciated. But Juice, always a pleasure, buddy. Cubs go for the series win tomorrow after a loss tonight. And what do you say? We get out here the only way to know how it comes on tap?
Fuck Cardinals.
Sure thing, buddy. And let's go, Cubbies.